Lisa, Annalise, and Jan.
So salutations, my friend, and welcome to the energy of the star tetrahedron, the mystery and the magic that when the upper triangulation is moving and the lower triangulation is moving, it opens the sacred doorway within the void, which then is back into the realms of spirit and arising forth from inside out is then the spirit of the void. The star tetrahedron is formed by consciousness and light. And so consciousness is the builder. So if we imagine everything within our world today, it doesn't matter what it is, it first came forth from imagination. It was imagined within the mind, and it was imagined then through even imagination. We created tools, we imagined how it could be created. And then with the employment of imagination, it was created into form. And so imagination became manifest, but it all came from consciousness, imagination. So if you can imagine in the beginning of creation, the void simply within the eons of non existence, for literally eons and eons of time, imagined. And in that imagining, because Source had perfect memory, Source was able to remember everything that was imagined, all the possibilities. And no matter how much Source folded and created and imagined up and down and everywhere possible, it simply expanded more imagination. And then finally, in that expansion of imagination throughout the non cosmos, you might say, Source finally asked the question, what am I? And it was in that moment of the what am I that literally the Big Bang 13.8 billion years ago, it literally erupted from out of this great darkness, which is exactly the same opening within the star tetrahedron within us. And as consciousness was then expelled into space, it was just that consciousness. If you can imagine then consciousness being, if you will, the expulsion of what was within the void. So here is the positive polarity of the void. And as it simply expanded and exploded something out, it was then a negative polarity, almost like a mirror. So here is positive polarity, here is negative polarity. But then consciousness, now, if you will, giving the edict to create what am I, realized that if mirrored, if one was simply mirroring what was within source, then there was really no movement. You could only see what was being mirrored back and forth. And so this is when consciousness then created through imagination a third something, a neutral point of energy that could then observe the positive and the negative. But this then created simply a triangle. And a triangle is simply what hydrogen is. Hydrogen is one positive proton, one negative electron, and one neutral neutron. And so hydrogen literally then pervaded the universe. Consciousness imagined, and hydrogen was the creation. A very simple triangulation of energy. As hydrogen pervaded the universe, then, it began to, what we might say, fall in love with itself, which is really what gravity is, simply being attracted to something or someone that is similar. But all the hydrogen within space began to be attracted back together. And over a great period of time, many, many millions of years, the hydrogen began to form into balls of energy. And we know how volatile hydrogen is. And finally, it reached a critical mass and it literally exploded into nuclear light. And so, for the first time, there was light within the universe. Before that, light did not exist. There was consciousness, there was the void, but when the ignition of all of these great solar beings occurred, then light filled space. And after a very somewhat short time, we might say, these solar beings were gigantic, probably 20, 30 times larger than our physical sun. And they were so massive that they burned their hydrogen up with a very kind of a short time. Our sun will probably last 6, 7 billion years. These solar giants burnt themselves out in approximately 2 or 3 million years, so a relatively short time. But when they did, the consciousness that was hydrogen, formed by consciousness, simply began to implode upon itself with love gravity. And as it continued to implode upon itself, it was squeezed so tightly together in this massive radiance and passion of kind of love squeezing that it literally began to squeeze hydrogen, protons and neutrons and electrons together. And as it squeezed them together, it then began to create all the elements in creation: oxygen, nitrogen, sodium, all the elements that had never existed before out of consciousness. And as those great giants exploded, all of that substance was then thrown into stellar space. And then hydrogen, then what was still left over, it began to form new suns, which is our physical sun. You begin to gather around it elements that was once hydrogen, now elements that are stardust, and created planets. And then consciousness then began to move upon the planetary systems and began to evolve from out of the essence of the oceans, one-celled amoebas, finally becoming two-celled, probably five-celled, continue on in evolution into voila, a human being made out of consciousness. Consciousness creating the body that is consciousness. Everything in creation is simply consciousness. It has been squeezed so tightly together, it has the illusion in the moment of some physical form. And that physical form, with our imagination, can then create computers and trains and automobiles and planes and the great cornucopia of stuff we have. But it's all just stardust. Consciousness, they became stardust. They became a train or an automobile or a plane. They became the physical body. And then as we then began to evolve, consciousness then began to literally realize it could download itself into these physical entities. And so approximately 200, 300,000 years ago, human beings were developed enough within the brain. They had a right brain of imagination, the left brain of action and logic. And with that consciousness that was now as brain awareness becoming alive, for the first time, consciousness could then get inside the body. Up until that point in time, consciousness throughout all creation has simply been working on bodies, on physical form in order to develop it. And now, consciousness being inside of a physical body, we then had souls. We were now consciousness living within bodies. And from inside the body now, we could begin to learn the lessons of creation, about the masculine of power, the feminine of emotion and feeling. We can begin to, through choices, learn that when we do something in error, we then choose a lifetime where we experience that error, that suffering. When we do something that is good and gracious, we then choose a lifetime that is filled with goodness and grace, a mother that is loving, a father that is supportive. And so by simply incarnating over and over, consciousness moving through form after form after form, we are now at the place in creation where you and I, and those of us working with our particular level of spiritual awareness, we realize that through consciousness, imagination, we can form out of consciousness and light the star tetrahedron. Upper triangulation, divine power, the focusing of attention, the true aspect of masculine, simply focusing attention. The lower triangulation, divine love, unconditional, compassionate, supportive love. But this is also then the imagination of love and the focusing of light. And as the star tetrahedron turns in that mystical marriage, it opens up the sacred doorway within the very middle of the star tetrahedron, something that has been created through consciousness and light back into the void from out of which all creation originally began. And now we, as consciousness, we can then call and summon forth from out of the open doorway source energy to begin to create something totally new, different, and unexpected. Up until the advent, if you will, of human beings who mastered the Christ consciousness, everything was known by source and by the field of consciousness, that is the great creator mother, what was going to happen. It was already in the imagination, already in the consciousness of the Divine Mother. What am I doing each and every time in development of hydrogen, of sun, of sunlight, of elemental material, of planets? But when consciousness began to get inside of physical forms, there was now free will. And with free will, we could within form make choices that had never even been imagined in consciousness, which would create all of evolution and all of the creation of the cosmos to create a whole new possibility of a trajectory. And we are at the doorway of that trajectory. Because as we now, through the development of the star tetrahedron, we simply focus the light of the mind, we imagine and feel the star tetrahedron, we see and feel the doorway open. We can literally imagine whatever we choose. And as we focus the light, hold imagination, from out of the open doorway, source, from out of the void arises forth. It imbues it with life, and a new creation happens. And so unlimited possibilities are now at our doorway. And we are at this place in our spiritual development where we now know the keys to literally imagining and creating as we choose, because we can begin to be trusted with all the powers of heaven and earth. Up until this point in time in our lives, we could still be angry, or we could be judgmental, or we could be critical. And if you have all the powers of heaven and earth and you're judging something, it would probably destroy it in that judgmental vibration. But love, when unconditional love is there, you simply reach out with compassion. You see something that appears to be an error. But as you look deeper within, you see that source, consciousness lives within. And as you then powerfully send golden liquid light to that streaming, it flows in and through the illusion of separation that form is carrying. It acknowledges what lives inside source. And from inside out, it has free will to awaken also. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to make it different. You are simply imbuing it with the acknowledgement that it too is God's source. And so consciousness is then simply honoring consciousness throughout all creation. No separation. So this is the magnificent play of consciousness, and we are the most fortunate because we are now at the place where we realize that we can, as the great being Jesus did, as the great being Krishna in India did, as Buddha and many other ascended masters have done, we can master consciousness and open the doorway and become creator beings. Voila. So within this marvelous development of the star tetrahedron, one of the things that we do that helps us kind of imagine and feel from the open doorway, the energy of source arising forth, is our breath work. When we're doing the breath work, we're breathing in oxygen, but more importantly, we're literally breathing from inside out source. And so in breath, source is arising forth. As we let go, simply becomes golden liquid sunlight through all the cells, tissues of the body, emanate out and acknowledging creation as goodness and grace everywhere. So let's do about 5 minutes of deep breath work, and I'll simply take you through the entire sequencing. So let's go ahead and close the eyes and feel the body relaxing. And with each deep in-breath, deep belly breathing, we are literally breathing from the open doorway within the heart, source into this dimension. And as we simply let go, we imagine and feel golden sunlight and peace flowing out into the world. Breathing in deeply, breathing source from the open doorway within the heart. We always have the spine nice and straight, up above the pure light of the soul, grounded in and through Mother Earth. The rod of initiation upon which and around the star tetrahedron turns. And breathing in slowly and deeply. Gentle exhale and golden sunlight and peace flowing out into the world. I am the light. Breath ever deeper, pausing between in-breath and out-breath. And from the open doorway within the heart, source becoming golden sunlight and peace rising forth. I am a field of consciousness summoning from the open doorway source into this dimension. I am a field of consciousness with my breath summoning source from the open doorway within the heart. I imagine it to be golden sunlight and peace emanating from me. And my imagination makes it so. Imagination is the preview of the future. I imagine I am the living star, summoning source from the open doorway within me. Emanating golden sunlight and peace out into the world. I am the light. Never a truer statement was made. I am the light. Another deep breath. And as it feels comfortable, to begin to allow yourself to slowly come back into the now. As we recognize kind of in our own observation more and more throughout the day that I am the field of consciousness, that formulated the field of consciousness I call my body. I am the director, the creator of my reality. What I deeply imagine and hold my attention focused upon must become real. If I imagine that prosperity is difficult, it will be difficult. If I imagine the world is in great travail, I will co-create more of that to be so. It is our imagination that has been creating the whole cosmos. And now is the time where we who can truly imagine so clearly and so profoundly and hold our attention upon it, we imagine goodness and grace and prosperity and love, no matter what the eyes see and want to observe in the world. It's just an illusion of a light and dance of energy teaching itself in some time in the future how to love itself. It's all just source. When you have perfected vision, you can look through anything in creation. And as you're able to look deep enough inside, you only see the light dancing with itself. Consciousness is playing in order to grow and evolve more love within itself. That's all that's happening. And so if you focus upon love, you will then create more love. Focus upon things that are peaceful and prosperous and joyful and magical, and that will be life. What we imagine is the preview of the future. And one of the great, of course, magic possibilities within that is the star tetrahedron, which magnifies. And the reason it magnifies so precisely is because this facets of these star tetrahedrons, all these multiple facets turning so rapidly, it literally, it refracts what we are emanating from the source. It reflects it all around, and then consciousness remembers it. It reflects it, reflects it, refracts it, and remembers it. The 3 R's. So be sure and get your reflections and your refractions in proper order. So I'm going to take you through the sequencing of the star tetrahedron. Again, it is consciousness, imagining. And as we hold our imagination ever more precisely, it becomes ever more real. We feel the open doorway within the heart, and we are summoning source into this dimension. So let's go ahead and close the eyes and feel the body relaxing. We can be aware of the breath. As we're breathing in deeply, the body is relaxing. And then we bring our attention between the eyebrows, gently drawing a line straight back to the center point of the head. And we ignite the light. Imagination. We ignite and imagine the light. It's filling the mind, filling the brain with golden sunlight and peace. We gently bring the attention to the heart chakra at the sternum, and we image in. We imagine the star tetrahedron, upper triangulation of divine power, lower triangulation of divine feminine love. And as the star tetrahedron turns, it opens the sacred doorway back into the heart. And from out of the void, spirit, with each breath, is arising forth. Changing the frequency of the body. Golden sunlight and peace is flowing out into the world. We become the living light. I am the light. I will join with you, and together we will create golden sunlight and peace, filling the room, flowing out into the world, uniting us all. And welcome back, my friends. It's nice to have a group of Matthew, Lisa, Rita, and Wendy in Carbondale. It's quite nice. Hello, folks. So let's see, next November for the first meditation, I will be out of town. So we'll have the second one, but not the first one. So that's the November 8th one. I'll also send out a little note to that effect. Of course, to continue to practice the focusing of consciousness, the mind, holding light, steady consciousness upon the imagination, not only of the star tetrahedron, but whatever you should create in your life as you imagine and hold it clearly in the focusing of attention. It then ripples out. And so we want to continue to observe and see things as good and glorious, dynamic health, prosperity, radiance all around, and have a great time, my friends. Blessings upon you, and we'll see you later, not sooner.